Imagine standing on the grandest stage of your life, basking in the moment of victory, only to have it ripped away by a corrupt system that sees you as a threat instead of a star. Maya Collins was a rising talent, a brilliant young black pianist with a bright future, until one fateful night changed everything. What should have been a night of celebration turned into a nightmare when a racist officer wrongfully arrested and humiliated her. But Maya refused to stay silent. She fought back. And what happened next? You won't believe the twist the story takes. This is more than just a story. It's a fight for justice, a battle against corruption, and a testament to the power of truth. Will Maya reclaim her dignity? Will the system be held accountable? Stay with us until the end to find out. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. If you love powerful stories of resilience, hit the like button and subscribe to Inspiring Stories Told, because these stories deserve to be heard. The grand piano gleamed under the warm golden lights of the St. Louis Music Conservatory. A hushed silence filled the opulent concert hall as Maya Collins, only 16 years old, sat at its keys, her fingers poised like an artist about to paint her masterpiece. The moment was hers. Years of rigorous practice, sleepless nights perfecting each note, and unwavering determination had led to this single performance. As her fingers danced effortlessly across the keys, the music resonated with an ethereal beauty, enchanting the audience. Every crescendo, every delicate pause, held them captive. She wasn't just playing. She was telling a story, one of struggle, perseverance, and triumph. When the final note rang through the air, a thunderous standing ovation erupted. Maya rose slowly, her heart swelling with pride, her dark eyes scanning the room until they locked onto her father. Nathan Collins, a man of unshakable presence, stood tall at the back of the hall, his usual stoic demeanor softened by pride. He didn't clap like the others, didn't cheer. Instead, he gave her a small, knowing nod, one that said everything. As she stepped off the stage, he approached, placing a firm yet gentle hand on her shoulder. "You were breathtaking, my star." She grinned up at him, the warmth of the moment filling her chest. "I still can't believe this happened." Nathan exhaled, glancing around as if scanning for unseen threats, an old habit from years of working in intelligence. "You earned this, Maya. But let's get you home. It's late." Maya barely noticed the tension in his jaw. The adrenaline from her performance made everything else seem distant, unimportant. But in the shadows of the grand conservatory, unseen eyes watched, and danger loomed closer than she knew. The night air was crisp as Maya walked home, still in her elegant concert dress. The streets were quiet, the city buzzing faintly in the distance. Nathan had offered to drive her, but she had insisted on walking the few blocks home. It was her way of savoring the moment, letting it sink in. She adjusted the violin case on her shoulder and hummed softly, replaying the melody she had just performed. The weight of her success still felt surreal. Then came the flash of red and blue lights. A sharp voice cut through the night. "Stop right there." Maya froze, blinking against the harsh glare of a patrol car's headlights. A uniformed officer stepped out, her posture rigid, hand resting on the butt of her gun. Officer Veronica Hayes. Maya had never seen her before, but there was something about the woman's narrowed eyes that made her uneasy. "What's the problem, officer?" Maya asked, keeping her voice calm. Hayes tilted her head, eyes scanning Maya from head to toe. The concert dress, the violin case, the delicate jewelry. Disbelief twisted her features. "Where are you running off to, huh? Stole something?" Hayes took a slow step closer, a sneer creeping onto her lips. "This isn't your kind of neighborhood." Maya's stomach knotted. "I live 3 blocks from here." Hayes let out a dry chuckle. "Yeah? And that fancy dress? That violin? Something tells me you didn't pay for those." Maya's pulse quickened. "My father bought them for me. I just finished performing at the conservatory." Hayes scoffed. "Yeah, right? Hand over the case." Maya clutched it tighter. "I haven't done anything wrong." "Wrong answer." Before she could react, Hayes lunged, yanking the violin case from her grip. Maya stumbled back, shock paralyzing her. The officer flipped it open, inspecting the instrument as if expecting to find something else inside. When she found nothing incriminating, her expression twisted with frustration. You people always think you can get away with anything, Hayes muttered under her breath. Maya's breath hitched. Excuse me. But Hayes was already moving, grabbing Maya's wrist in a bruising grip. Hey, stop. You're hurting me. Maya protested, trying to pull away. Resisting arrest? Hayes said mockingly. That's a mistake. And then, before Maya could fully process what was happening, Hayes slammed her against the patrol car. Pain shot through her chest as the rough metal pressed into her ribs. A small, panicked gasp escaped her lips. No, please. Hayes wrenched her arms behind her back, snapping cold metal handcuffs around her wrists. Maya twisted her neck, trying to see the officer's face. I didn't do anything. A few passers-by had stopped, pulling out their phones. Some murmured in concern, but none stepped forward to help. Hayes ignored the cameras. You want to run around looking like a thug? Then you'll be treated like one. Maya's world spun as she was shoved into the back of the patrol car, the doors slamming shut behind her. Her perfect night, the night she had worked for, dreamed of, was over. And the nightmare had begun. The ride to the police station was a blur. The cold metal of the cuffs bit into her skin, her arms aching from being twisted unnaturally behind her. Her mind raced. How was this happening? By the time they arrived, panic had turned into numb disbelief. Hayes dragged her inside, ignoring her protests. The station was bright, sterile, filled with officers who barely glanced in her direction. She was forced into a processing room, where Hayes grabbed her chin, forcing her to look up. What's your name? Maya hesitated before speaking. Maya Collins. Hayes narrowed her eyes. Collins? Any relation to that government agent? Maya's heart skipped a beat. She bit her lip, forcing herself not to react. She couldn't let them know who her father was. Hayes let go of her face with a smirk. Not so tough now, huh? Then came the final humiliation. We'll need to remove that hair, Hayes said nonchalantly, snapping on latex gloves. Maya stiffened. What? Hayes gestured to her braids. Gang-related. We don't allow that in holding. Maya's breath hitched. Her braids were part of her identity, carefully done, a symbol of her roots, her culture. You can't. Hayes grabbed a pair of scissors and sliced through the first braid. A sharp gasp escaped Maya's lips, her body going rigid. No, stop. The second braid fell. Then the third. Maya clenched her jaw, tears burning her eyes, but she refused to cry. Hayes wanted to break her. She would not break. When it was over, when the last lock of hair hit the floor, Hayes stepped back, admiring her cruelty. There. Now you look like you belong here. Maya was shoved into a cold, empty holding cell. She sat on the bench, staring at her reflection in the scratched metal mirror. Her hands curled into fists. Her soul was shattered, but her spirit was still burning. And no one, not Hayes, not anyone, would take that away from her. Nathan Collins sat in a dimly lit safe house, his hands gripping the edge of the desk as he watched the video on repeat. His face, usually unreadable, drained of color. The grainy footage showed his daughter, Maya, slammed against a patrol car, handcuffed like a criminal, her terrified protest swallowed by the voice of an officer who had already decided she was guilty. The name on the badge. Hayes. Nathan's stomach twisted. He had spent years burying himself in the underworld, crafting the perfect cover as a ruthless businessman to infiltrate Victor Steele's criminal empire. He had endured years of deception, violence, and careful maneuvering to get close to the syndicate's inner circle. And now, in a single night, Maya's arrest threatened to unravel it all. He clenched his fists. If Steele put the pieces together, if he realized that Nathan Collins, the seemingly corrupt businessman he had come to trust, was actually a federal agent, this wouldn't just be about a failed mission. It would be a death sentence for him. For Maya. For anyone connected to him. Nathan swore under his breath, grabbing his jacket. He had to move fast. He had to get to Maya before the wrong people did. The safe house doors slammed shut behind him as he disappeared into the night. The cold, sterile lights of the police station cast an eerie glow over the front desk. The stench of sweat, stale coffee, and cheap disinfectant filled the air, but Nathan barely noticed. His pulse thundered in his ears as he stormed toward the front desk, his badge flashing briefly before he tucked it away. I need to see my daughter. Now. The officer at the desk barely looked up. And you are? Nathan Collins. His voice was low, controlled. Dangerous. Recognition flickered in the officer's eyes. Nathan knew exactly what they saw. A man who exuded quiet power, someone who was not to be ignored. The officer's fingers hesitated over the keyboard before he muttered, "Hold on." Moments later, Officer Veronica Hayes emerged from the back. Nathan's entire body went rigid. There she was. The woman who had slammed his daughter into a police car. The woman who had cut off Maya's braids. Hayes sauntered up to the desk, a smug smirk on her lips. Well. Looks like Daddy's here to clean up after his criminal daughter. Nathan felt something dark coil inside him. A deep, cold rage. The kind he had learned to suppress. Where is she? His voice was a deadly whisper. Hayes leaned in slightly, tilting her head. She's exactly where she belongs. Behind bars. Nathan inhaled sharply. He couldn't lose control. Not here. She's 16, he said, his voice even. She's never committed a crime in her life. And you know it. Hayes let out a laugh, folding her arms. Oh, because she's an honor student? A gifted pianist. She rolled her eyes. Doesn't change the fact that she was in the wrong place, looking like the wrong kind of girl at the wrong time. Nathan saw red. He stepped forward, lowering his voice to something razor-sharp and lethal. You made a mistake. Hayes blinked, caught off guard by the ice in his tone. Nathan leaned in. And if you don't fix it, I will. A tense silence stretched between them. Then, another voice broke through. Nathan Collins? Nathan turned to see Captain Roger Marks, the man in charge of the precinct. A relic of the old system, the kind of officer who prioritized loyalty to his own over justice. Marks glanced between Nathan and Hayes, reading the tension immediately. He didn't look surprised. I'd like to have a word with you in my office, Marks said, his voice dripping with forced civility. Nathan followed, jaw tight. Mark's office was cluttered, paperwork stacked high, an old fan humming in the corner. The moment the door shut, Marks dropped the pretense of professionalism. Look, Collins, he sighed, rubbing his temples. I know who you are, and I know what you do. Nathan's expression didn't change. He waited. Marks exhaled. Your daughter got caught up in something unfortunate. Hayes got a little overzealous. Nathan's eyes darkened. Overzealous? She had humiliated his daughter, stripped her of her dignity. Marks continued. That said, we can make this all go away. No record, no press. But, Nathan narrowed his eyes. But what? Marks folded his hands. You step back. No lawsuits, no IA investigations. No making a scene. Let this slide, and we'll let her go. Nathan leaned back in his chair, watching him, calculating. Marks had no idea who he was dealing with. If Nathan pushed too hard, he'd make himself a target. If Steele found out about the arrest, about his real identity, Maya's life would be on the line. For the first time in his career, he was powerless. He stood, forcing himself to remain composed. I expect her out of that cell within the hour. Mark smirked. I knew you were reasonable. Nathan walked out without another word. But the moment he stepped into the hallway, his hands clenched into fists. Inside that holding cell, his daughter was sitting in the cold, humiliated and broken. And there was nothing he could do. Not yet. Across town, in a lavish penthouse overlooking the St. Louis skyline, Victor Steele swirled a glass of whiskey, watching the news replay. He was a man who saw everything. A man who pieced together puzzles faster than anyone else. And this was a very interesting puzzle. The screen showed the grainy phone footage, Maya Collins, arrested, her name plastered across the bottom of the screen. Steele's sharp eyes flickered with interest. Collins, he murmured, testing the name on his tongue. A smirk curled at the edge of his lips. Because he had known Nathan Collins for years. A businessman. A man who claimed to be in his world, who had managed to weasel his way into Steele's circles. But now, something didn't add up. Steele leaned back in his chair, exhaling smoke from his cigar. So the businessman is actually an agent, he mused. And now I have leverage. He reached for his phone, dialing a number. Find the girl, he ordered. Bring her to me. The game had changed, and Nathan Collins was about to learn just how dangerous it was to have a weakness. What would you do if your entire world crumbled in a single night? Maya Collins, a brilliant, innocent girl, has been humiliated, her father's secret life exposed, and now a dangerous crime lord has set his sights on her. Can Nathan protect his daughter before it's too late? Or will Steele's ruthless grip tighten around them both? Let us know your thoughts. Should Nathan fight back openly or play it smart? Drop a like if you support Maya, and comment your theories below. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Jackson Miller sat in his dimly lit bedroom, his fingers trembling as he uploaded the arrest footage of Maya Collins. His best friend, someone he had known since childhood, someone who spent her evenings practicing piano instead of partying, someone whose biggest dream was to play at Carnegie Hall, had been humiliated, brutalized, and falsely arrested. He couldn't let it go unanswered. As the video uploaded, Jackson typed a simple caption: Maya Collins, a 16-year-old honor student, was falsely arrested, assaulted, and had her braids cut off by a racist cop. This isn't just injustice. It's cruelty. #Justice for Maya, #braids aren't a crime. He hit post. Within minutes, notifications flooded his screen. Hundreds of retweets. Then thousands. The video spread like wildfire, crossing city lines, state lines, international borders. Maya's face, her tear-streaked but defiant expression, became the image of a movement. By morning, the entire country was watching. The streets of St. Louis erupted in protests. Signs filled the air. Braids are not a crime. Justice for Maya. Fire Officer Hayes. News stations picked up the footage, dissecting every frame of the video. The outrage was undeniable, the public demanding answers. But instead of accountability, the system fought back. The St. Louis Police Department held a press conference that afternoon. Captain Roger Marks, flanked by Officer Veronica Hayes and several high-ranking officers, took the podium. He adjusted his tie, clearing his throat as cameras flashed. Ladies and gentlemen, Marks began, his voice calm but calculated. We have reason to believe that Maya Collins is not the innocent honor student the media portrays her to be. Our department has received reports of her possible involvement with gang activity, which is currently under investigation. Maya, watching the press conference from her living room, felt her breath hitch in her throat. Gang activity? She had spent every waking moment of her life chasing academic perfection, dedicating her time to music, never even stepping near trouble. And now, in front of millions, she was being painted as a criminal. Marks continued, his voice dripping with authority. The actions taken by Officer Hayes were in line with department protocol. This is not an issue of race or discrimination. This is about ensuring the safety of our community. Maya clenched her fists. Safety? Was she a threat now? Was she, a girl who had spent the previous night performing Chopin, suddenly dangerous because of her braids and skin color? Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. As the press conference ended, Officer Hayes was seen smirking in the background. She had won. For now. Nathan Collins sat at his desk, his heart pounding as he scrolled through the news. FBI agent Nathan Collins suspended for interfering in local police operations. Undercover agent exposed. Was he protecting a criminal? He gritted his teeth. They were coming for him. His office phone rang. He snatched it up. Collins. A voice, smooth and low, slithered through the receiver. You should have stayed in the shadows, Collins, said Victor Steele. The crime lord Nathan had spent years infiltrating. I don't tolerate liars. And now, I know exactly who you are. And who your little girl is. Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. I swear, Steele, if you click. The line went dead. Nathan exhaled sharply, his mind racing. His cover was blown. His mission, years of sacrifice, the painstaking work of infiltrating Steele's empire, was crumbling before his eyes. But worse than that, his family was now in mortal danger. He stood abruptly, shoving his chair back. He needed to get home. Now. But just as he reached for his coat, Two internal affairs officers walked into his office. "Agent Collins, you're being placed on indefinite suspension pending an internal review." Nathan turned to face them, rage simmering beneath his composed exterior. "For what?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Interfering with police operations," one of the officers said flatly. "Captain Marks filed a complaint. You're to surrender your badge and service weapon immediately." Nathan didn't hesitate. He slammed his badge onto the desk, tossing his gun beside it. They were trying to silence him, but he wouldn't stay silent. After 48 hours in a holding cell, Maya was finally released. But freedom didn't feel like freedom. She stepped out of the station into a blinding swarm of reporters, cameras flashing, microphones shoved in her face. "Maya, do you have anything to say about your arrest? Are you affiliated with a gang? Do you regret resisting police orders?" The sheer audacity made Maya's stomach turn. She wanted to scream. She wanted to shout that she had done nothing wrong. But instead, she kept her head down and walked forward, her father's protective arm around her. As they got into the car, her phone buzzed with dozens of missed calls. But one message stood out. "We regret to inform you that due to recent media attention, we must rescind our scholarship offer. Best of luck." Maya's vision blurred as she read it over and over again. Her scholarship, her ticket to Juilliard, gone. She felt the walls closing in, the world stripping away everything she had worked for. She had spent her whole life proving she was good enough, trying to be perfect, excelling beyond expectations. And none of it mattered. She was a criminal in the eyes of the world. At school, her principal called her into the office. "We think it's best if you don't return to class, Maya," he said, not even making eye contact. "It's causing a distraction. Expelled. Not for breaking a rule. Not for failing. Expelled for existing in the wrong place, in the wrong way, in the wrong skin." Maya's fists clenched. She was tired. Tired of being quiet. Tired of accepting things. For the first time in her life, rage burned inside her like wildfire. She wouldn't let them erase her. She wouldn't let them win. Maya has lost everything, her scholarship, her education, and her dignity. But she is not broken. What should she do next? Should she fight back? Or is the system too powerful? Comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this incredible journey. Nathan Collins was done playing by the rules. The moment they took his badge, he knew what was coming. The system would bury the truth. His daughter's pain would be dismissed as an unfortunate misunderstanding. Officer Hayes would keep her job. Captain Marks would continue covering up corruption. And Victor Steele, now aware of Nathan's true identity, would stop at nothing to eliminate him. No, not on his watch. Under the cover of darkness, Nathan broke into his former office, bypassing security with the skills that had made him one of the most effective intelligence officers in the country. He moved through the shadows, his heartbeat steady despite the high stakes. He needed leverage. His fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing the St. Louis PD's classified records. Years of investigations, buried complaints, hidden reports. The deeper he dug, the uglier the truth became. Officer Veronica Hayes had a long history of abuse. 2016, excessive force complaint against a 14-year-old black boy. Dismissed due to lack of evidence. 2018, illegal strip search of a Latino woman. No disciplinary action taken. 2019, racially charged traffic stop led to an altercation. Victim was charged instead. 2021, death of a black suspect in police custody. Ruled an accident. And who had covered it all up? Captain Roger Marks. Nathan clenched his jaw. This wasn't just one bad cop. This was a systemic operation of corruption. His eyes flicked to a folder labeled Confidential Internal Reports. Clicking it open, his blood ran cold. Marks had been paying officers under the table to keep quiet. Nathan quickly downloaded the files onto a flash drive. This was the ammunition he needed to bring them down. He had proof, and he knew exactly who could help him expose it. But first, He had to make sure Maya was safe. Nathan pulled his car up outside their safe house. The second he stepped out, something felt wrong. The air was too still. The street was too quiet. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Years of training had sharpened his instincts, and right now, they were screaming. He barely had time to react. A black SUV sped down the road. The windows rolled down. Nathan's eyes widened. Gunfire erupted. "Get down," he shouted, lunging toward Maya just as the bullets shattered the windows. Maya screamed, hitting the ground as shards of glass rained down around them. The deafening sound of bullets ricocheted off metal, puncturing the night like lightning. Nathan shielded his daughter's body with his own, rolling them behind a parked car. His heart pounded in his ears. More shots rang out. Tires screeched as the SUV peeled away, disappearing into the night. Silence. Maya lay beneath him, trembling, her breaths coming in shaky gasps. "Are you hit?" Nathan demanded, scanning her. Maya shook her head, her eyes wide with terror. Nathan's fists clenched as he helped her to her feet. His worst fear had just been confirmed. Victor Steele wanted them dead. This wasn't just about intimidation anymore. This was a full-scale execution order. Nathan's mind raced. His cover was blown. The police wouldn't help. The only way to survive was to fight back. Maya sat in front of the camera, her hands gripping the edge of the table to keep them from shaking. Beside her, Detective Samuel Carter, one of the few good cops in the department, adjusted the microphone. "You ready for this?" he asked. Maya swallowed hard. She wasn't ready, but she wasn't going to let fear silence her either. She met the camera's gaze. "My name is Maya Collins," she began, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "2 nights ago, I was falsely arrested, humiliated, and assaulted by Officer Veronica Hayes. She cut off my hair and called me a thug. But this isn't just about me." She took a shaky breath. "This is about every black child who has been targeted, every innocent person who has suffered, every life that has been ruined by people like Hayes and Captain Marks." She reached for the stack of documents Nathan had uncovered, holding them up for the camera. "These files prove that Hayes has a history of abusing her power. She has brutalized innocent people and been protected by Captain Marks. And we're done being silent." Maya slammed the files onto the table. "We demand her immediate suspension. We demand an independent investigation into the department. We demand justice." Detective Carter nodded approvingly. "This will air on national television within the hour." Maya exhaled. It was done. She had fought back. But the war was far from over. The response was instantaneous. Within minutes of Maya's video airing, the public erupted. Protests doubled in size. Calls flooded the mayor's office. The department was under fire like never before. And for the first time, Officer Hayes was suspended. But Captain Marks wasn't going down without a fight. The very next morning, news broke. Nathan Collins, former FBI agent, under investigation for corruption. Maya's stomach dropped as she saw her father's face plastered across the screen. "This just in," the reporter announced. "Former intelligence officer Nathan Collins is now the subject of a federal investigation. According to sources, he has been accused of illegal hacking, destruction of police records, and bribery." Maya's breath hitched. They had framed him. Nathan stood frozen in the doorway, his jaw tight with anger. "They just declared war," he muttered. A loud bang shook the house. A SWAT team stormed in, guns raised. "FBI, hands in the air." Maya screamed as agents tackled her father to the ground. Nathan's voice was drowned out by the chaos. "You're making a mistake," he shouted. Maya watched, helpless, as the only person who had ever protected her was dragged away in handcuffs. She had just exposed the truth. And now the system was striking back harder than ever. Nathan ran through the shadows, his breath ragged, his body screaming in protest. Blood dripped from a gash along his temple, but he couldn't afford to stop. Not now. Not when Steele was so close. Victor Steele had hunted him down, sent his men to kill his daughter, and orchestrated his downfall. But this wasn't about revenge. This was survival. Nathan had spent his life outsmarting men like Steele, power-hungry criminals who thought they were untouchable. But tonight, Steele wasn't the predator. He was the prey. A heavy door slammed shut behind him. The abandoned warehouse was eerily silent, only the distant hum of traffic breaking through the stillness. Nathan knew this was a trap, but he had no choice. It was Steele or him. A slow clap echoed through the space. Victor Steele stepped forward, a cold smirk curling his lips. His sharp suit was immaculate, his demeanor calm, but his eyes burned with menace. Well, Collins. You finally stopped running. Nathan clenched his fists. His body ached, but he forced himself to stand tall. He wasn't broken. Not yet. Was this your plan all along? Nathan growled. Expose me, kill my daughter, and wipe out anyone who stands in your way? Steele chuckled darkly. Oh, Nathan, you give yourself too much credit. Your little girl was just an inconvenience. A loose thread that needed to be clipped. Nathan saw red. This man had put Maya in danger. He had nearly killed her. And now he was talking about her like she was nothing. With a roar of fury, Nathan lunged. The fight was brutal, a desperate clash of willpower and survival. Steele was fast, but Nathan was faster. The moment Steele swung, Nathan ducked, landing a devastating punch to his ribs. Steele grunted but retaliated, slamming Nathan against a rusted metal beam. Pain exploded in Nathan's side, but he ignored it. He had fought through worse. Then a gunshot. Nathan's heart stopped. Had Steele just pulled the trigger? Was this how it ended? But Steele's face contorted in pain. Behind him, Detective Carter stood, his gun smoking, his expression cold and unwavering. Game over, Steele. Steele's body crumpled to the ground. Not dead, but defeated. Nathan sagged against the wall, exhaustion overtaking him. It was finally over. As Nathan fought for his life, Detective Carter had been fighting another battle, one just as deadly, but in a different arena. Armed with the evidence Nathan had uncovered, Carter had stormed into the police station, forcing Captain Marks and Officer Hayes into a corner they couldn't escape. The walls of corruption were finally crumbling. The press swarmed the department, cameras flashing, journalists shouting questions. The evidence was undeniable. Hayes' abuse, Mark's cover-ups, the entire dirty operation laid bare for the world to see. And at the center of it all, Maya Collins. With fire in her veins and unshakable determination, Maya walked through those station doors, her chin held high. She had entered this place once as a victim, humiliated, powerless, stripped of her dignity. But today, she walked in as a warrior. Gasps filled the room as she stepped forward, her presence commanding. Officer Hayes' face drained of color. The woman who had once mocked Maya, who had stolen her voice and cut her hair, now stood frozen, her reputation about to be destroyed forever. Maya, a reporter called out, shoving a microphone toward her. Do you have anything to say? Maya turned, staring directly into the camera. She didn't have to yell. She didn't have to fight. She simply spoke, and the world listened. I was treated like a criminal for existing, she said. But today, I take my power back. And I won't be the last. A beat of silence. Then, cheers erupted. The people had spoken. The world had seen. And justice was finally being served. The storm was finally over. Officer Hayes was arrested, her career in tatters. Captain Marks was indicted, his empire of corruption shattered. Victor Steele, the crime lord who had tormented Nathan's family, was behind bars, awaiting trial. And Maya? Maya was free. For the first time in weeks, she stepped onto a stage, not as a victim, but as an artist, as a survivor, as someone who had taken back her story. The grand piano gleamed beneath the lights. The audience sat in breathless anticipation. Maya closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and placed her fingers on the keys. The first note rang out, then another. The melody was soft, yet powerful. A song of struggle, of pain, of triumph. She had written it herself. Unbreakable. As she played, Maya felt the weight of everything she had endured begin to lift. She wasn't the same girl who had walked off that stage the night of her arrest. She was stronger, fiercer, unbreakable. And as the final note lingered in the air, the audience rose to their feet, applauding, cheering, crying. Maya had won, not just against the system, but against every voice that had ever tried to silence her. Maya's story is more than just a battle for justice. It is a reflection of real struggles faced by countless people who were judged by the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. It is a reminder that injustice thrives when good people stay silent, but it crumbles when voices rise against it. Her journey was filled with pain, humiliation, and heartbreak, but she never let the system define her. She refused to be broken. When Officer Hayes tried to strip her of her dignity, Maya stood her ground. When the world labeled her a troublemaker, she rewrote the narrative. And when those in power tried to silence her, she spoke louder than ever. But Maya's fight is not just hers alone. It is a fight for every young black girl who has been told she doesn't belong. It is a fight for every innocent person who has been wrongfully accused, every dreamer whose success has been doubted, and every family who has lost their peace to a corrupt system. Her story is a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of truth, courage, and perseverance. This is where you come in. Change doesn't happen overnight. The world doesn't magically become fair because we wish for it. It takes action. It takes awareness. It takes people like you who are willing to stand up, speak out, and refuse to let injustice go unchecked. So, what can you do? Start by being informed. Speak out when you see discrimination, whether it's in your community, at school, or in the workplace. Support those who are fighting for justice. Share stories like Maya's to keep the conversation alive. And most importantly, never let fear stop you from doing what's right. Because when enough people fight for change, change becomes inevitable. Maya's story is proof that no matter how hard they try to break you, they cannot silence the truth. And if this story moved you, if you felt the injustice burning in your heart, if you cheered when Maya took back her power, then don't stop here. Support her. Stand with her. Make sure her voice, and the voices of so many others, are never ignored again. Like this video to show that you stand against injustice. Share it to spread the message. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. There are so many stories left to tell. Stories of resilience, of courage, of people who rise even when the world tries to bring them down. And we will tell them all. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just Maya's story. It's all of ours. So join us. Together, we are unbreakable. Subscribe now. Like, share, and let's make the world a better place, one story at a time.